For over 5 years, we haven't had colored belts in my dojo. You got your white belt and you wore that until you got your black belt. Today I want to share why I did that, what I liked about it, and why I think it might be time to change it. The white belt. The belt we all start with. This, 5 or 6 years ago, I decided would be the only belt. Went and got some nice ones, good quality, something that could hold up to the abuse, and we went to no colored belts on the mat. The whole reason I decided to do that was because I was really tired of seeing people so focused on the color of their belt and how much better they were doing than someone else, or how much someone else is doing better than them, and if they deserve their rank and all of this. And so little emphasis on just training, just putting in the work and working hard, that I decided to go back to the older way of doing things, having your rank on the nefurikake on the wall and not having color on your belt. So when you train, your rank stays over there and you just work. This has worked really well, and honestly, it was received really well. Students took it really well when we talked about it, and we went full in. Just made a hard cut right into doing it. And for the last 5-6 years, people have only worn their white belts unless they got their black belt. And you know what? That's something that I think really stood out to me, as it did work. People did put in the effort and they worked hard. And they didn't focus about that. Everybody worked with everybody. I even had people from other schools come in who had black belts or other degrees, other ranks in other styles, and they put on a white belt and they just trained. And it's been really good, and it's something that makes my heart happy. So why would I change it? Well, I'll tell you why. The reason is, I've thought long and hard about the impact of that. And for me, I don't think it should be necessary. I don't think you should have that external influence forcing you to drive forward. But guess what? I already have one of these. This has happened for me. I can't go back in time and really think about how I felt when I didn't have one of these. And so there's a part of me that realizes that not caring about that might be because I've already done it. But also, in conjunction with that, there's also this idea that when I train martial arts, I have and always have wanted to train to become better at the martial arts. I love everything about it. I want to be on the mat. I want to train. I want to learn something new. I want to learn anything new. I want to hash out and put reps in on old stuff that I've done a million times. I just love the martial arts. So having an all white belt system where you just come in and you just train, it worked. It worked for me. It matched what I like. There's many students on the mat that I have that it works for them too. At least it doesn't seem to not work for them. So again, why change? The reason that I've decided to change is because the dojo is not filled with a bunch of me. They'll get on the mat and they'll train, and they will, over time, you look like your teacher. They'll look like me. They'll do things the way I like to do things. They'll have their own things that they like to do. They'll know my art, what I teach, how I teach it, the philosophies that I hold, the principles that I leverage to utilize the skills and strategies and tactics of the arts that I teach, but they're not me. Some of them might be motivated the way that I am, but there are many, probably plenty, who are motivated for different reasons. They're there for different reasons, and they might want something to show their progress, to be proud of, to earn, to motivate them to continue, to have something to push for. The mat has been full of people who just come in and put in the work. But we've also had a lot of people come and go, come and try the class for a while, work for a while, and then drift off. A fair number of it. I mean, the core set of people, 5 to 8 core people who've been around for a long time, who put in consistent effort. Then other people that you get excited, they're in, they're training, and then pretty soon they're not around anymore. And I think to myself, what if I am culling my students? At one point, I heard somewhere, read somewhere, something about how you can either grow really good students or you can cull out the students who aren't really good and build a school full of great students. I never wanted to be a school that culls people out, that says you don't match the standard. go on. I want to grow students. And all this time that I thought that I have, but I also realized that maybe, just maybe, by not having these other things that we have in the West, these motivations, these external motivations, something to drive for and be proud of, something that is recognizable on the mat to other people besides you, that maybe that is culling students. And it is inviting people to train elsewhere because it's not matching what they want, what they need. And so I had to have a heart-to-heart with myself and realize that I am not the only person here. And yes, it's my dojo. I can run it how I want to run it. I can teach what I want to teach. I can do things the way I want to do things. But at the end of the day, that's not what I actually want. I want to share the love of the martial arts, my love of the martial arts, with people. I want to grow it in people. And if it means wrapping a different colored belt around someone's waist for them to be proud of, for the people around them to be proud of, maybe that's the right thing. It doesn't change how I feel. It doesn't change that I just want to train and I'm not too worried about a specific belt color, but it does possibly change it for other people. And so I've decided that it's time. Now, I'm not going back to the old system, the old color system that we had. We had white, yellow, blue, green, brown, black. That was how our system's colors worked. I'm not doing that. What I've decided to do is I've decided to go to 2 more colors. The 2 specifically pivotal colors that were in our rank were the green belt and the brown belt. As you trained, that halfway point, your green belt, was when you were sufficient, you were a capable person, where concern of you not being able to handle yourself has started to dissipate. You are the artist starting to be a part of you in a solid way. And then there's the brown belt, where you're starting to get very good. And it's down to refining what you have. You, for all intents and purposes, with the way that we train, a brown belt, in many cases, is the equivalent of maybe other areas, black belts, because it's this idea. And that sounds weird. I'm not saying that our school's so much better. It's that, I don't know, there's another intangible thing about a person that grows that to me shows when someone has hit their black belt, and it's not checking boxes. So very often, what we see is someone very capable who doesn't have their black belt yet because they haven't achieved that character quality, that part of themselves that, again, intangible, difficult to describe. I've got a video about my thoughts on the black belt. I'll link it down in the description. But if you want to check that out, the black belt is something specific to me. It's outside of just a rank based on a bunch of checkboxes of a curriculum. So by the time that you're working through your brown belt, and we had 3 levels of brown belt, it was your 3rd, 2nd, and 1st cue, then you were a capable person. And for a lot of people, you could stop there and be doing just fine. But you have this further to go. So those were the 2 main places. One where that was that tipping point where all the rudimentary stuff was starting to be effective in you. And then one where all of that has become very effective in you. And you're seeing the principles of things. You're creating technique off of what you understand how the principles work, rather than just being able to regurgitate something given to you. You're creating and expressing your art for yourself. The green belt and the brown belt. So that's it. That's what I've got. Now, I get my belts from Kitaro. Just mentioning that for anybody who cares. I really like their belts. They're durable and they last well, they hold up well, and most importantly, they're easy to get a hold of. Some of the places I've gotten belts in the past, I haven't always been able to get them timely or things like that. You might wear these for a while. The time frame for how this goes is you might be a couple years into your white belt before you put on your green belt. You're probably going to be a couple years into your green belt before you put on your brown belt, and you're going to be 2 or 3 years in your brown belt before you put on your black belt. So I wanted belts that are going to hold up. Now, that doesn't necessarily solve this motivation problem of not feeling like you're getting somewhere. So, as many styles do, looking at stripes. I decided to go with a black tape because it's going on a white belt. and I decided to go with a fabric electrical tape. In the past, we've used electrical tape. I know in Jiu-Jitsu we use like finger wrapping tape. It's just kind of a fabric tape. And so I decided that I would try, and to be determined how it works out, this fabric electrical tape, something that doesn't have that same vinyl, just a different material. Interested to see how that holds up on somebody's belt, because it's going to be on their belt for a while. Going to do multiple stripes. There's going to be, I still use the basic rank system of 10th Q to 1st Q, first on and up. And so 4 stripes on your white belt, then it's time to put on your green belt. Sit in your green belt, 1 stripe in the green belt, get in your brown belt. And I haven't decided if I'll actually stripe the colored belts, but basically there's 2 ranks at green before brown starts. That's your 5th Q and 4th Q. Then 3rd, 2nd, and 1st are going to be in that brown belt, and then it's time for the black belt. So that's the setup. That's what I've decided to do. I didn't want to go back to a fully colored system. I still think it's important that you're putting in for you internally and not doing something so that you can get that next belt. I've seen when there's lots of belts, your goal is just to get the next one and the next one. And pretty soon your skill, your understanding of your art is based entirely on what's more, what else, rather than investing into what you know. And I believe very much that shallow is not the way. You have to dig deep to know what you know, to learn what's there, to get at what's important. Over time, you see students leave, and a lot of times when I see students that have actually gone pretty far and leave, it's usually because they're just not getting more, and that's what they want. They feel like the only way to get better is to be given something additional, more kata, more technique, more something, and they miss the fact that it's not about more. It's about you being capable of more, seeing more in what you have, understanding deeper the things you already know. By the time somebody is wearing one of these, they have probably everything they need. Everything. Anything from there is permutations of existing principles and understandings that you could continue to explore and express and grow without ever learning another kata, another technique from here on out. This is about digging into that. Not too many people get here. Very few people get here. Even less people get here. And that's because you're acquiring here. You're working and you're becoming better here. You have here. It's time to start digging and continuing. And once that starts setting in place, it's about being able to make it you, what you can do, how you can express yourself, the things you actually like and choose for yourself, the things that make the most sense to you, that work well for you. You're finding the stuff that works. You're refining your game. And then it's time to be able to wrap that black belt around. And the black belt is its own thing. One of the things that really made me think about this, if I'm honest, is jiu-jitsu. For the first time in a long time, I'm wearing a different colored belt than I have had before. I've worn a white belt in jiu-jitsu for years and years and years. I've worn a black belt in everything else for years and years and years. So for the first time, I'm wearing a new belt, and also able, because of our connection to a new affiliation, be able to stripe people. And watching people on the mat get excited for other people to be promoted was something that we were missing, something we didn't have because of the way I was running it. Here's the deal. People did get excited. It's not that they didn't. The promotions happen in front of the class. Everybody gets excited, claps, cheers, hugs, celebrates. But if you weren't there that night, there is no recognition that it took place. You don't have something that shows that that's taken place for someone else who wasn't there to come in and see it and also be excited for you. Put a stripe on someone's belt in jiu-jitsu, and then somebody comes in who wasn't there and they see it and they're excited. And you get to be excited about that. That feeling, that emotion, that excitement, it was missing. I didn't have that. The other thing that I didn't have is, as a teacher, as the person who's leading the class, I couldn't always easily look and go, how am I grouping people? I couldn't say, if you're not focused on your rank, I can't say, hey, this rank, go over here, because most people are like, I don't remember what rank I am. I've got to look. Sometimes I'd have to go look. I can't remember if you are this rank. I know where you're at. I can see your skill level, but I can't remember if I've promoted you to that yet or not yet. And now I need to go grab my iPad or something to go look at where you're at, because it's written down somewhere. It changes when you can look. And this is probably, as a teacher, the thing that I missed from colored belts the most was my ability to see where someone is at and start going, okay, you've been in that belt for too long. Your skill's definitely there. It's time to do something different. And that is something that I missed. So the ability for people to be excited, the ability for other people who weren't there when you were promoted to also be excited and celebrate your achievements for you. And the ability for you to be proud of something that is your own, but it's something that you get to carry and share with people. I want to put that back in. I want to be able to have that for the people who train at my dojo. And it doesn't change how I feel about how important it should be for you, and it really shouldn't be for anyone else. At the end of class, we take off our belts, put them around our head, and tuck them under our gi because it's for you. It's something that's for you and not for other people. I still think at the end of the day, it needs to be about you. What you have, what you know, what you carry, and what you've invested in, what you've chosen to invest in, and not what you can show off or base all of your progress on, but instead just a marker, something that goes along with what you're doing. So we'll see how this goes. This journey, especially as a teacher and someone running a school, this journey is about making decisions for the whole group. And sometimes you make ones that it's time to change them. They were effective for the time. They did what they needed to do, and you need to be okay to let go of them. And sometimes you also need the ability to recognize that what you did might have worked, but it didn't work as well as it could have. Or heaven forbid, it didn't work, or it only worked for the people who it worked for. And there are many people who it didn't work for. And so part of this whole kenfu thing is me sharing. This is called Ken Learns Kenfu because I am learning from the choices that I make. Some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, and I've got to come up with new decisions and new thoughts. And I may yet change this again. But right now, that's where I'm at. So for the people who did know that that's how it's been and wondered how it went, here's a little bit of an update. Bringing back some of the colored belts to bring back something specific and intentional and important to me, while bringing the most important thing to me, which is to possibly bring a little more joy for the people who choose to do it with me. At the time of this recording, I haven't actually told the students yet. That's tomorrow night. They don't know. I've got a couple of the people who've been with me the longest who I spoke with about it because it affects them maybe the most. One, I wanted to know she was already a black belt, and then one who's well on his way, and he's done that whole thing with his one white belt. And so actually a little bit of resistance there because all of his blood, sweat, and tears is in that white belt. And to get almost there and then to give that up and put on a different belt, I might do something different there. But that is to say, tune in soon because we'll see how it goes with everybody, letting everybody know tomorrow night. Right now, to be determined.